Welcome to another retro unboxing, and this is the latest production from Bitmap Books. It's also a chance to say a big thank you to a friend who I've worked with on several projects, someone I've known for 20 years now, and who's helped me out with articles and other projects. So once again we have this lovely Bitmap Books packaging, pictures on. Open up the cardboard. As you can see, it's all well packed and protected. The Games That Weren't by Frank Gasking. As I say, I've worked with Frank. I've helped him with his Games That Weren't website, with research and contacting people, and I've then used that research myself in articles. And this book has taken Frank almost 5 years of his life to put together. Now larger than the film and music industries combined, the games industry has provided over 40 years of games across a plethora of platforms. We're spoilt for choice for what to play today, and that choice is grown by the day. Even so, there are many titles promised over the years that sadly have never seen the light of day for a variety of reasons, many of which have mysteries and stories behind them both solved and unsolved. An illustrated snapshot of a wide range of unreleased games and hardware from 1975 to 2015 across arcade, home computer, console, handheld and mobile. I set some screenshots shown for most titles, some never seen until now. There are also specially created artist impressions. 80 games, 5 specially created hardware that weren't blueprint pieces, and interviews on titles such as Star Fox 2. The Games That Weren't showcases and pays tribute to well-known and not so well-known unreleased titles with new details and information, as well as titles never heard of until now. So let's undo the shrink wrapping and take a look. This was available to pre-order from Bitmap Books, and as you can imagine, being a fan and friend, I ordered as quickly as I could. And with Bitmap Books, most titles also come with a PDF. I did have a quick flick through the PDF to familiarise myself with it, but I haven't actually read anything. So The Games That Weren't by Frank Gasking. Foreword David Crane, design, sound art and Frank Gaskin. Artist, impression and pixel work Trevor Story. Hardware blueprints Adam Ruffino. Publisher Bitmap Books. Dedicated to several people there. And then this spread is a list of the reasons why some of the games and hardware wasn't finished. So as you can see, it's split down into sections based on years. Foreword by David Crane. Welcome by Frank Gaskin. And I'm actually mentioned here. With the help of Andrew Fisher, David Simmons, Alex Ross, Peter Whale, Andrew Simpson, Adrian Simpson. So they're people who have contributed to the Games That Weren't website. So 1975 to 1979. A little bit about the times. Blackjack for arcade, first title, and also on these spreads you'll see not available to play. So there's interview material, artist impressions of how it looked, and a flyer. Cannonball is available to play as a prototype. It's deemed too violent. Time Bomb failed testing, not available to play. Artist impression. Atari Game Brain from 1978, cancelled because it was already outdated. Licensing issues for an Atari version, 2600 version of Boggle. Video chess on the left and Boggle on the right. Boxer, poor testing for this arcade title. Captain Seahawk failed its field test. You can see Game 7 on Air Sea to Battle was used as the template for Captain Seahawk. That's what it might have looked like. Mini Golf from Atari was cancelled another arcade title from Atari. Wolfpack, cancelled for not being fun. Oops, from Larry Rosenthal, failed its field test. Which is where they take a cabinet out to an arcade. Sebring, cabinet was too costly to produce. Official Atari photo of the prototype. Some related titles. 1980 to 1989, Conquest, put on hold from VidKids, Ray DeMar and Eugene Evans. Okay, Dark Tower for Vectrex. Recreation of the overlay that would have gone on that screen. Malplane, another famous Vectrex game. Keystone Cannonball. Stopped by the video game crash in the US in 1983. But Gold Rush by Dan Kitchen is about to go into Kickstarter funding, and there's also a C64 version on the way. Blaster, Atari 5200. Lack of sales. Sapphire by Scott Adams, adventure game. Development put on hold. Bandersnatch, one of the mega games from Imagine. Millipede for the 2600 cancelled. Death Pit from Durrell, which has been found. One of the stories I have heard quite a bit about, and actually got more of the story from John Darnell himself. Attack of the Mutant Zombie Flesh-Eating Chickens from Mars, which is one of those infamous lost Matthew Smith games, where they even went as far as printing the covers for the tape before the game was finished. Atari 7800 version of Rescue on Fractalus, that game, starring Charlie Chaplin. It's coming for the ST and the C64. And there's some playable segments of that now. Black Hawk from Lucasfilm, unfortunately not available. Last Ninja on various other platforms was heavily delayed and never released. The original advert was more than 6 months later. The leaked Atari ST version and an artist impression of how the ZX Spectrum version would have looked. USSA, game from Williams that was never released. NARC used the same technology. The Konix Multisystem, a famous British console that was never released, which had a variety of control methods. Heart of Yesod, follow up to the early Yesod games, I believe. Attack the Mutant Camels 89 from Jeff Minter for Konix. And there are lots of stories about that, including the hydraulic chair that would have moved you as you played the game. Terminator for the NES. Bubble Bobble for the BBC Micro. And then we're on to the next decade, 1990 to 1999. Dick Special, The Search for Spook from Sandy White, most famous for Ant Attack, and graphics of that did appear in the magazines at the time, and development carried on for some time. And that's the printed screenshot from Deluxe Paint, and the top, the artist Angela has created that mock-up, and more early screens. Hard driving for the NES cancelled. Castle 2 cancelled on the Amstrad GX 4000 console. Deadlock from Cyberdyne Systems. Chips Challenge could have made it to the NES. Space Fantasy Zone, the Commodore 65, although it's about to be revived involving the Mega 65. Solar Jetman, one of the big successes for games that weren't, was finding the complete C64 version of Solar Jetman, which is great fun to play. Mega Twins, cancelled. Green Lantern from Ocean, cancelled. Obviously there's another game, Universal Heroes, that is perhaps as famous from Ocean at that time. Snow Brothers. Licensing problems. The Amiga version has leaked. Another of Frank's big successes, tracking down Daffy Duck and the Great Paint Caper, where the game is actually now playable, and I wrote an article on that for Retro Gamer. Super Mario's Wacky Worlds, part of the Philips deal with Nintendo. Vindicators, the Atari Lynx handheld, the arcade conversion from Atari themselves, but not released. Elite for various platforms. Spitfire Fury for the Acorn Archimedes. Akira for Game Boy, Mega Drive, Mega CD, Sega Game Gear and Super Nintendo. There would have been conversions of the Lethal Weapon game from Ocean on Master System and Game Gear, but not released. Rolling Thunder, another Lynx casualty. You can see there's in-depth interviews, there's artwork, adverts, and more. Lemmings 2 cancelled for the Master System and Game Gear. Waterworld for 3DO and PlayStation. So we're not even halfway through and you can see how much we got. Dark Seed, lack of funding. Virtual Tank on the Virtual Boy. For sales of the hardware. Creation from Bullfrog. Publisher cancel it. Virtua Hamster on the 32X. Game I don't know much about. So much like the bonus section from Sonic 2. Primal Rage 2 cancelled due to financial troubles in the arcade. Death Watch on the Jaguar. Lots of detail on there. Bound High, another Virtual Boy title. Star Fox 2, which would have been Super Nintendo, but they switched to N64 for the sequel, and of course the Super Nintendo Classic Mini now has the playable Sonic 2. The illness of the developer causing the cancellation of Sonic Extreme. Ridge Racer, because of PS1 exclusivity. The cancelled Thrill Kill. And Sensible Software, John Hare and Robert Trevelyan talking about sex and drugs and rock and roll. Die Hard 64, casualty of poor performance of the N64. And on to 2000 to 2009, System 3 cancelled Putty Squad across various formats. Amiga 1200 version finally released in 2013 alongside the PS3. Resident Evil on the Game Boy Color from Hot Gen, which would have been basically the full 3D game. Sim Mars, cancelled to focus on The Sims. So that's another Maxis game. To get to Mars. Frogger 2 Swampy's Revenge, cancelled due to the cost of the N64 cartridge. Propeller Arena, unfortunate timing with the events of September 11th, 2001. Half-Life, have played the leaked Half-Life game with exclusive content. Flashback Legend, bankruptcy of the company. 8 Kings for the Nokia Engage from Argonaut. Unfortunately, the format didn't last. Tiny Toon Adventures Defenders of the Universe, unknown reasons that was cancelled on the GameCube. Stunt Car Racer Pro, follow-up to the Jeff Crammond Classic. Unfortunately, didn't find a publisher. Fallout 3, this is the original Black Isles version for Interplay. Burnt Out Cop, intellectual property problems. 100 Bullets, cancelled by the collapse of Acclaim. talk. License problems with the Game Boy Advance title there. And you can see some screens from the prototype. The Phantom, one of the earliest attempts at an online streaming console. Developers ran out of cash. Carmageddon TV development issues. Some great sketches there and prototype graphics. Tetris DS. There was a legal dispute with developers THQ and the Tetris company, which can be played, but obviously there's a more famous one for Nintendo with the extra Nintendo features. CCTV from John Hare and Nikitova Games for iOS, DS, Wii and PC, but unfortunately didn't find a publisher. A revamped version of Gauntlet for the DS. And then 2010 onwards, Marsok from Zombie Studios. Again, and one that failed because of a lack of publisher. Preliminary sketches and screens there. Black Death, financial difficulties for Darkworks. Eye of the Moon, which would have been the last part of the Lords of Midnight trilogy, following on from Lords of Midnight and Doom Dark Revenge, and unfortunately Mike Singleton passed away. I was trying to interview him for Retro Gamer at the time, and he was then very ill, which is a real shame. There's been, of course, the revived versions of Lords of Midnight on modern hardware. The Panasonic Jungle cancelled. The Lizzie Borden Murders on PC. So you can see lots of quotes from developers. An interesting art, Tony Hawk's Shred Session, which is available to play. Dizzy Returns, failed Kickstarter from Blitz Games, the Oliver Twins. Went from the Spectrum to the HD remake here of Prince of the Yokefolk on iOS, but Dizzy Returns, you can see some of the sketches there and backdrops. Never made it. Human Element developed or closed. Subtradition sidelined. Some interesting graphics there. Spooky development for the Commodore 64 currently on hold. So it seems unlikely that will be finished. Honourable mentions, so a selection of other notable titles in chronological order, which you can investigate further. From 1977 to 1989 there. Contributions and thanks to lots of people with each particular title. A glossary of some terms that may not be familiar as you read through the book. Do you have an unreleased game sitting around gathering dust? If so, get in touch on www.gamesthatweren't.com. And so that is The Games That Weren't by Frank Gasking. Absolutely beautiful looking book, full of some fascinating information. And I hope you've enjoyed looking through it. Keep watching my channel for more retro unboxings.